we are students of Mr. Height's Design Lab class, and thank you so much for taking time to listen to our presentation. The main basis behind our class is really like self-guided learning and self-guided hands-on learning on top of that. The entire pitch of the class is that we would go through the design thinking process, which we've been doing, and that involves observing and noticing problems around the world that we can change around our community, and then ideating and trying to come up with solutions to fix them. But then on top of just coming up with solutions, we've also done a lot to try and make those solutions a reality, which is really cool. So our slogan is Design for a Difference. So basically what that means is, again, what I've said. We, along with just thinking through the design thinking process, trying to empathize with our users, we've also been trying to do a lot of hands-on learning and a lot of hands-on work to try and create solutions and things like that. So that we really want to take what we're thinking about and actually make a difference with it. And so to do that, the environment that we have been working in, it works, not as well as it could, and especially with a space like this, we think we could do a lot with it. Like, for example, one problem we had is even when we were coming up with this, the idea of like workspace, so just like having places to work was something that we were trying to work on. So the atmosphere, although it works, could be a lot better, which is what we're trying to do to make our process more effective, because it's not a very common type of learning. Okay.
All right, so with all this in mind, we felt the need to like kind of rebrand the class. So we changed the name, and it wasn't really so much of a change of the name. It was that we had all been calling it something different than what it was on like the course selection sheet. We call it Design Lab because that brings in the design aspect of coming up with ideas and problem solving, but also the lab part of hands-on building things, as you see here. And along with that, we also created a logo for the class. And so it's supposed to show the idea of like the brainstorming of the ideation, because that's like a light bulb, and pencils, so we're going to create the design, and it loops back in because design is a process. We design to think, and then think to design, and it keeps going. As we prototype, find problems with it, re-prototype, continue with that. So.
All right, so as Priya mentioned, the environment of the class isn't exactly what it could be to be most efficient for us, to work the best way for us. So the first part of the process of redesigning this classroom, we began with trying to empathize with our users. So we conducted interviews of Mr. Height and one design lab student and one English student. So we found needs that were common to all of the users. That included, they wanted the classroom to be more comfortable because they found that many regular high school classrooms aren't very designed for comfort, they're designed for efficiency. So we wanted to be able to balance comfort with efficiency in this classroom, but also make it inspiring, because we're creative, we're designers, we want to be able to use the environment around us to help us design. And I'm pretty sure there was one more. We wanted to make it flexible, yes, so that we could create different zones for what we were working on. So the first thing that we did with prototyping and redesigning the classroom was that we took away all of the desks that were, well, first of all, they're very uncomfortable to sit in for long periods of time, and with Design Lab, we won't be sitting. Most of the time, we'll be up on our feet and working. Like Rachel and Priya said, we're going to be hands-on building and creating stuff. So we wanted to take away the hard, uncomfortable desks and find a bigger space that we could work on. So we decided to create work tables, design tables, that had a larger surface space. I'm pretty sure, Zach, do you want to explain these?
So basically the tables are 4 foot by 8 foot. They're made out of just like plywood 2x4s. And on top there's a big piece of shower board, just like a piece of fiberboard that has whiteboard surface on top. So you can use it as a whiteboard. People can work problems out together and think about things like that. And then when you're done with it, or if you want to stand it up, you can pick it up out of the table and set it on something. And then underneath it's just standard plywood surface. So you can write on that, use it as a desk, while you have it up in the air on display, or just out of the way if you want more room to work on it. They're not horribly expensive, the tables that we designed. They're between $200 and $300 pop. So they're far cheaper than anything that you'd find that does all the things that we want to do. They've also got wheels on them so you can move around, get them out of the way if you need to.
Yes.
Yep.
So as Zach mentioned, we wanted to have a lot of vertical writing space for the classroom so that we could actually get our ideas out and make them visible. So we have our regular whiteboard for that. We also created we're going to be using Gatorboard to be able to stick, as you can see, we have a lot of Post-it notes around the room, and they're just so that we can get our ideas out onto something so we can see them and decide if they're good or not, if we want to use what we've created, what we've thought of. So the next thing that we wanted to bring into the classroom to try out is foam cubes. So they would be used for quick, efficient, just getting together with the class, talking about something, and then being able to go back to whatever we were doing before, because with these kinds of desks, they're very difficult to move around, they're loud, they're noisy, so foam cubes would solve that problem. We also decided to, in redesigning this classroom, get rid of the TV, which we don't really use, and expand, put bookshelves in on that side of the wall so that we can have more storage space for organization. And so that's what we're going to do with that part of the room, and I'm pretty sure that's it for this part of the design. So we also, in creating the empathy interviews, we wrote out a how might we statement. So how might we create an environment where students can be motivated, creative, comfortable, and communicative while being able to transition between different modes of learning in a way that makes them feel engaged. So that's what we tried to do with our prototype.
And now having all these ideas and thoughts about what we wanted to do with this space was all well and good, but we needed to also find a way to make it reasonable to actually execute, because we only have so much money, and we can't just go kind of look at a catalog and say, we want all of this, because based on past experiences, that has not worked out so well. So that's why we did a lot of the things we did in this classroom. For example, instead of just buying tables like this, which we probably could have found if we looked hard enough, we decided it would be much easier and cheaper just to make them ourselves. And we looked at using actual slate chalkboards instead of these gator boards. But while gator boards serve the same purpose of being able to vertically communicate our thoughts, they were also a lot cheaper than the chalkboard alternative, especially with real slate. And we've learned from this that chalkboard paint is a good idea, but it doesn't always work out wonderfully. And as well for the foam cubes, this was a really big thing Mr. Height really liked, and so did the rest of the class, because it was a cool way to kind of collaborate without moving around big noisy desks or tables. And we initially thought we could just get 20 so everyone in the class would have one and it could kind of create a campfire space over here. But when we really learned how much that they cost and the fact that they kind of weren't that durable after hard use for a few years, we decided it would be better to start with 12 and then prototype those, see how it went, see if people liked them, and go from there, because that would be more practical. The paint. So we also wanted to add color to this room because a lot of high school classrooms are pretty, earth tone. They got the white, they got the gray, they got the brown. And we thought it would be a lot more interesting if we added some color. When we first started ideating, we thought, let's just paint the entire classroom. But then when we started to look at paint and cost like that, we realized that that would not necessarily be practical. So instead we decided we're just going to paint this back wall here, because that way it only takes about a gallon of paint, and it still adds that pop of color to the room, and also brings focus back to this wall where we do a lot of our visible thinking.
Yeah, that's all we've got.
The end.
We can open it up to some questions.
Yes.
When we're talking about paint, have you looked into some of the research around colors and paint colors to see what would be the best for learning and for your purpose?
Yes, we definitely did.
Do you want to go into detail for that? So we wanted to, so for creative thinking, colors that are really bright and kind of harsh weren't necessarily what we were looking for. Like, I think reds and like neon colors, that's not what we want to have in the classroom.
We've got
So-
paint swatches.
Yes, these are the 3 colors that we've narrowed it down to. I'm pretty sure we're going to take out the blue. Maybe. We might, because we don't want it to be too cold of an environment. Just want to stimulate creativity and make us feel comfortable.
Yeah. The
Bring
reason
aesthetic.
we have 3 different colors up here instead of just one is because we really want to kind of see how it looks in the space by getting little swatches of the paint themselves and seeing it on the walls, because you can like try to hold the paint swatches up, But until you really see it like in the space, you don't know how much it's going to change the room.
Any other questions?
First of all, I just want to recognize, I really appreciate the way you've articulated this afternoon, in the short time we've been here, the background information, so the why of what you're proposing, and what it will be like when you actually, if these changes come to fruition. Who will do that work in your mind? What are you envisioning? Who does the work? And what will it ultimately cost? Because that's a part of what I'm hoping to learn today, as maybe we take this to the foundation.
Okay,
Have you
so
talked about that?
yes, we have, and we've actually really looked at that because
Excuse me, one quick announcement. Senior girl powder puff players, there will be practice tomorrow at 2:40.
The worst time.
Auxiliary gym, and bring clothes prepared to go outside.
okay, so
So who will do the work?
oh yes, the work. So we actually really thought about that because that would be definitely something that added to the cost. So as people in the cost group, that was a concern of ours. But what we kind of looked at was the fact that a lot of us were actually willing to kind of chip in with this work, and we could work with other like students and people either in the other classes or just in the building that were willing to kind of help with this and see these changes being made. So it wouldn't really be a lot of like costs for work because it would be more of a group of people who just really wanted to see something happen.
Okay.
And I think we were talking about how it's not going to be necessarily part of class time, but like on a weekend thing. Like it's not really part of, like we're not spending class time. We're not spending class time working on like the classroom redesign, but that's more of like a
Irina.
weekend thing or after school thing.
Okay.
Irina,
That's you.
cost.
No,
Actually,
that's
that's
And the cost.
I think I have to make
Cost.
practice.
Oh no.
yeah. I mean, any last quick questions?
You didn't say that the cost was.
cost. You're wondering about cost?
The cost of overall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it came out to around $3,200.
Okay.